What is co-regulation? What does it really mean? When we talk about co-regulation, where does that land when you're thinking about that for yourself? How much co-regulation do you need? How much do you need as a parent? How much do you need to have available in order to provide another? When we think about co-regulation, we're thinking of something that comes from innate when we are thinking as adults. It's something that is an intrinsic value within us in order to provide for somebody that may need support in a very dark moment or in a difficult moment or in the midst of frustration. And so I look at that, I observe that, and I use myself in a certain way that can help that person to feel more contained, to feel more held, and to feel attuned to. What's difficult in child development is that oftentimes it's so hard for a child to understand the truth of co-regulation, how to seek and reach out for co-regulation before a behavior explodes, and how to sometimes with developmental delay figure out how to shift from co-regulation into self-regulation. When we think about co-regulation as a whole, you basically are thinking of the right brain. When we're looking at the work of interhemispheric organization, where the left brain is more systematic, more logical, more lingual, all the L's, and the right brain is more emotive, more creative, more new and novel. No, it's not pristine in the division, but it is predominant. So when we think of the right brain and we think about new and novel experiences and affective exchange, we are thinking about co-regulation is right brain, to coin what also Daniel Siegel has said. That right brain to right brain connection is what we're looking for. And it does not happen on a verbal level. So many times when we have a child having trouble with frustration or meltdowns, we want to talk them down. We want to talk them out of it. We want to tell them, well, you know, this is not going to work. You need to think about it. Can you breathe deeply? Can you, and we try and talk them through it. In their mind, they're not even getting the language because once they're in their right brain, it's not so easy to shift to the left when you do have early developmental delay in a variety of diagnostic categories. So when we think about affect and affective attunement that comes with co-regulation, you're thinking of how my mind is reaching your mind and your mind is reaching mine. And then between the two of us, we can find a place where we can simply just be and we do not have to talk. That we can savor the silence that's between us and the nonverbal message of feeling felt can happen. So you hear me talk about the word attunement, right? And so when you think about attunement, you're thinking about that, what the research is talking about, feeling felt. But it's also that whole relational parent to child, child to parent, and that beautiful motherese that we see when mommies attune to their babies and go, oh, aren't you the most beautiful thing in the world? You're the most precious thing, right? And so we want to love on our child and we whisper on our child in that co-regulated piece, and our baby looks back at us and tries to form the lips, tries to imitate because those mirror neurons is coming alive, right? So when we think about this whole place of being, it is about being on the same vibe and just catching each other's vibe. I see kids who come into the center and they can look at me across the room and the first thing they want to do is catch my vibe. And they want to know, is that safe to enter or not? Many kids just run in because they always feel safe, right? But others will always remain cautious. Always. They never, always feeling like something unpredictable is going to happen and I have to be vigilant. So regardless, It doesn't matter if the profile is one of hyperarousal or underarousal or disorganized. We all need co-regulation through the other. I am co-regulated by my husband. I'm even co-regulated by my dog. My dog always looks at me with eyes that says, all you need to do is love me, give me attention. Right? And it's so easy because I'm not talking to him. It's all nonverbal, right? It's the way and the prosody of which I speak. And no, I'm not comparing animals to humans and humans to animals. The concept I want to give you is that co-regulation is part of relationship, and we use it all through our lives. But somewhere along the line, I can access and retreat from co-regulation by my own autonomy. And that's what's hard for kids. They will hold on to the parent for longer than necessary because they cannot shift from co-regulation into their own self-regulation. And when we think about this piece, you have to also think about empathy and think about how's empathy born with all of this? How do I develop empathy for myself? And then how do I use that empathy on others in not a cognitive way, kiss the boo-boo and it's over, which is an earlier step of empathy, but in a deep, emotional, symbolic way, when I can look at you and I just can say, this is hard. This is so hard. It's frustrating. And when they get through something, to say, boy, that was tough. To co-regulation is not fixing somebody else's emotion. It is being with the person. It's helping them to get to a place where they feel the emotion is validated, where the emotion is held, contained, and that they can feel okay in feeling the emotion. That they're not a bad boy or a bad girl because they have that emotion. That emotion is real. That even today I still can get angry and mad, frustrated, disappointed, rejected, jealous. All emotions are available to us for the rest of our lives. And where do we learn to cope with it? In early life. We have to give time for the emotional psyche to take a hold. One of the key factors that you want to use in co-regulation is the pace. In a way, if you're listening to this, YouTube, you may feel a certain pace coming from me as I'm speaking. And that pace could either be upregulating for you or downregulating for you, or just keep you calm, right? The way that you encounter me and I encounter you is at a certain rhythm and pace. And yes, for that piece, we need the child to also, and part of the individual differences, to understand rhythm and the reciprocal turn take that comes with rhythm or supported through rhythm. That rhythm is an integral part of the communicative effort and also figuring out the rhythm of how to show empathy. And empathy is very different than sympathy. Sympathy often is, yeah, yeah, Brene Brown has a beautiful YouTube short that she talks about sympathy versus empathy. And I always get that cow's or moose's face in my mind's eye when I think about that short. And the cow comes down, or the deer or the moose, whatever it is, comes down. And he said, at least you've got this, and at least you've got that. It's almost like you want to, as she says, put a silver lining on it with sympathy. But empathy doesn't want to do anything, but simply tell you it's okay to feel the way you are. It's a much deeper space of being. And then also, if you're thinking about, and I'll do another YouTube later where I'll give you my meltdown recipe, but to think about the fact that you want to go slower in order to go faster later. That when somebody is upregulated, the pacing is to go down, slower, lower. Available, not retreating, but slower and lower. And then that supports to get into that rhythmic breathing that you would like to see. I always forget what I really say when people say, please, Maude, repeat that again. But I wrote this one down because I thought that I like the way that this sounds because it actually does say what I mean it to say. I'm going to read it for you. The smallness of the moment is the bigness of momentum to mobilize the mind. Think about that. It's how we make ourselves small in our availability, that we're not larger than the situation. It's how that small moment of giving you a hand on your knee, a little squeeze on the shoulder, that small moment is what mobilizes the child's mind to gain the momentum it needs to conquer, to survive, to overcome. And so it becomes big. I want you to think about that. It's such a crucial place for me. So we talk about connection before correction, right? And we're definitely doing that when we're going to talk about the meltdown recipe another time. But there's another piece that comes in as one of the other mantras I like to use: reflection before correction. When I think it was Russell Barkley, ADHD guru in the US, that said that you can give a child two skills that will take him throughout life, and that's regulation and reflection. And I think it's so true. So very true. I see it every day. And the true moment of reflection on what had happened is often the moment that we're just all so glad it's over that we just all want to move on. We must take time to reflect. We must train and help the child that we're working with to model what reflection is. To say, oh my goodness, that was really hard. And sometimes just to add, that was hard because you needed to do at least three things at once, right? And giving a reasoning behind it may just be a moment of clarity and learning after the meltdown has taken place, not during, because now we can shift more to the left brain. So giving reflection, spending time on reflection, having a dinner moment. I have a friend, sometimes I just like, not again. But whenever we get together for a dinner, he would always say, so what's your highs for the week and what's your lows for the week? And it's just part of what he does, right? But he would do that. And I think it's so crucial. I often use him when I think about this piece. Every end of the day, when the family is gathering together, and yes, we should be gathering together, because one of the biggest imitations we can do is the social around dinner table. Don't forget that. But when we are together, to kind of say, hey, let's talk about your day. What was the high? What was the low? And sometimes, yes, teenagers can say, fine, I guess, right? They can give us that. But they think, they ponder. We've sown the seed. They're the ones who need to take it further. Don't always think that you've got to get a response with every overture you make, especially when it comes to teenagers, right? Just giving them food for thought, things to think about, but getting the reflection before the correction. So basically, first connect, then reflect, then correct with strategy. And the strategy is best negotiated when we're working together, that it's not one person providing the strategy, but that we're doing this in a problem-solving, two-way street format. Hopefully that was helpful in thinking about co-regulation. Such an important deal. I look forward to comments and questions. Take care.